Hi, I'm Tricia at Club Scrap. Welcome card makers to your Falling Leaves card assembly tutorial. We're going to have a lot of fun this month turning all of this into 12 beautiful greeting cards. I have everything I need here, my instructions, the kit itself, a trimmer, my accordion pocket file. I hope you have one of these too, and if you don't, just let us know. We'll help you get the resources and the materials you need in order to make one of these so you can stay organized while you're building your cards. This kit is beautiful. We've got a gorgeous selection of ribbons and as well as this leaf-shaped garland. We have some silk leaves, both oak and maple, in the set, and all of the panels and envelopes, of course, in this gorgeous super smooth ivory. I just love the ivory stock that these are made from. And we also have our cut-aparts, and I think we're going to start with those. So we find your printed cut-aparts, and let's get these trimmed into their appropriate file folders before we start doing our scoring and other prep work. Our first sheet will be trimmed according to those little registration marks you'll see at the edge of the print. And if this is your first time working with a kit and you haven't noticed that yet, those little marks tell us exactly where these pieces get trimmed. So when we place this into the trimmer vertically, we want those narrowest strips on the right, and our first cut will happen at 7.5 inches. And slide it down to the next hash mark, and I'm going to lining that up with the edge of the blade. That's at 3 3/4. Now we'll rotate this. We'll make 3 cuts, and that will be at 8 1/4, 5 1/2, and to 2 3/4. So those measurements aren't listed anywhere, but I kind of know what they are. If that helps you in any way. I know when I teach classes, some people like it when I call out the measurements, just to double check they've got the right spot. This all gets filed into pocket A, and then we'll grab our next strip here and trim them again at the same measurements of 8 1/4, 5 1/2, and 2 3/4. Gather up the 4 pieces, pocket A. Then there's one more strip here, and these also get trimmed, I believe, at the same measurements. So 8 1/4, 5 1/2, and if you find it helpful to bring this closer to where you can see better, by all means, go ahead and do that. 2 3/4 is the last one. Guess what? Everything going in A here. For our next sheet, we're looking for a piece that has a narrow strip on the right, and that's how we want to place it into the trimmer. Vertically with the narrow strip on the right, and our first cut will be at 8 inches. Then slide down to 6, and then 3. Followed by a little rotation. We'll cut at 9 1/2, and 4 3/4 is my guess. Yes, indeed, 4 3/4. The 2 pieces with the dark orange frame will be filed in pocket C. Thinking of you, also C. Okay, make sure you insert the next strip with a "You're the Best" on the right, and that's going to be 9 1/2, and 4 3/4 again, so we're just cutting that in half. Same distribution again, the 2 orange framed quotes and "You're the Best," pocket C. Now, this next strip, we'll take the narrowest pieces off first with the leaves. That's 9, and then we're at 7, and I'm guessing 3 1/2. Yes, 3 1/2 to cut them in half. Pocket C. Wow, they're getting a theme here that will end right about now. So these need to become triangles. So what you want to do is just simply line up the corner and the opposite corner along the edge of the blade of our trimmer, and you can see really well how that works. Just stabilize on the clear bar. I mean, that's the magic of this trimmer, is the fact that you can hold things in place firmly without getting in the way of the blade. All right, these 4 little triangles will go in B, and I'm sorry to tell you, I did not use this. Usually I just put that in D for did not use. Or perhaps you can find a use for it. Okay, so in this one we got to do some stripping out here. So we're going to put this in with the darker red, narrower pieces on the right. We're starting at 6 1/2, and then 4 1/2. Rotate, and I'm pretty sure this is going to be at 8 1/4, 5 1/2, 2 3/4. So we have 4 rectangles all the same size going into pocket B. Then 2 more strips. Both of these are trimmed the same way. You could do them together, but that first cut was at 10.5 and 8 3/4. I just don't trust it enough to do them all together. Then 7, 5 1/4, 3 1/2, and 1 3/4. Sometimes I just bring that a little lower so I can see. Okay, repeating. So the first cut is going to create a scrap. That's at 10.5, 8 3/4, 7, 5 1/4, 3 1/2, and 1 3/4. So those were the same numbers as the previous strip, or just follow along with those little hash marks. Like I mentioned, you have the 2 scraps. Not going to use those. And then all of these little pieces end up in pocket C for this really cool gate card. Oh, I think I mislabeled. You just better reach on in pocket C. Take out the dark frames. Those need to go in B. These, I think these do end up in C. All of these will go in C. My apologies. Okay, we got that fixed, I think. Either way, if it's misfiled, we can just unfile it when the time comes to assemble the card. In your kit, I want you to find 2 panels that are just singles. There's no other one like it, just these 2. One's red, one's brown. They're both the same size. And these need to be trimmed into 4 individual panels. It's going to be pretty easy. So we'll just place the whole lot into the trimmer. This is currently 6 inches wide. So I'm going to do this vertically. And our first cut then will be at 3. So we're just going to cut that in half. Then take the strip that's in the base of your trimmer, which is now 3 by 8, and we'll cut it horizontally in half at 4. Take these piles of rectangles you made, and those are going to go in pocket A. And we'll repeat for the second strip. Just trim it horizontally at 4, and file those pieces in pocket A. Ta-da! Now, there's one other narrow single red piece, and this is going to become 4 triangles. All right, so place it into the trimmer horizontally and cut it 2 1/2. Now you've just made a square. Take the square, and the same exact way we did it before, we're going to cut it into a triangle. And I believe those are used in pocket B. And repeat for the other square, just corner to corner. Adjust it until you've got it lined up with the blade. You could also do that with a ruler and a craft knife and a cutting mat. Pocket B. I want you to look for these cream texture style panels. These need to be trimmed into strips, and it's going to be quite easy. We'll place 2 at a time into the trimmer horizontally. So if you were to measure this, it would be 6 inches long. And we'll cut at 4 and 2. We started at 6 and we're cutting at 4 and 2. Then we'll repeat with the other pair. So horizontally, starting at 6, we're going to slide to 4. And then 2. And all of these strips land in pocket C. Okay, the next steps require the score pal, so I'm going to swap that out with my trimmer. Okay, for card set A, we're going to be making these double pocket cards. They're really cool. But one of the things you need for this to be really successful with it is text weight paper, and that's why we've provided this beautiful cream text weight. And we're going to do this 2 at a time. We're going to score vertically and half at 4 1/4, and then rotate so it's horizontal and score at 5 1/2. Now, if you choose to do this 1 sheet at a time, just be really careful that you don't put so much pressure on the bone folder when you score it that it breaks through the text weight paper. So again, that's vertically at 4 1/4, horizontally at 5 1/2. That's card set A. So if you want to go ahead and file those in there, you certainly can. Then locate the 4 long, narrow orange card bases for set B. These are 4 1/2 by 9, so it seems like a weird size, but we're going to make a card with a narrower flap. So let's just score this horizontally at 6 1/4. And I did 2 at a time. Same for the other pair, horizontally at 6 1/4. If you'd like, you can also find the 4 brown panels. These are going to coincide with this, and those are both filed in pocket B. There's another set of 4 small orange panels. Those are used in pocket C. We're kind of doing a little bit of filing and pocketing. And then we have these red card bases. These are going to become gatefold cards. Let's score these horizontally. The measurements are 2.5 and 7.5. We'll repeat for the other set at 2.5 and 7.5. That goes in pocket C. Now that our scoring is finished, our trimming is finished, let's get started on making card set A. I've taken everything out of the pocket labeled A, and if you want, we can do a deal. Now, obviously, this is going to end up becoming a card base for each card. We also have a bunch of other materials, so if we were to consult our instructions, we can kind of figure out how to make a pile for each card. So we're going to start out with 4 orange panels. These end up on the inside of our cards. And then each card gets a red and a brown panel as well. So just distribute those and you'll be left with a bunch of outies and innies and some triangles. So there we've got that. It's nice to have a friend to grow old with. You go first. Nature does not hurry, yet everything is accomplished. Go stand outside, so if anyone asks, you're outstanding. You're only young once, but you can stay immature indefinitely. So that's going to be a happy birthday. Here's another you go first is happy birthday. And then the everything is accomplished is congrats. So to make the base for card set A, we'll use one of these text weight scored pieces that we've prepared, a cutting mat and a craft knife and a ruler. Now, if you're not comfortable with using a craft knife, you certainly can use a scissors for this step as well. The first thing we need to do is just imagine that this mimics this drawing on page 2 of your instructions. And the first thing we need to do is make a cut from the left edge of the card base and cut until you reach the intersecting vertical score line. So I have the bump side facing up on my paper. That'll probably provide the best results for us. And just make sure you're level. And I will cut from the edge and stop when I reach the center line. Perfect. Just right. The next thing we can do is take this corner and bring it up so that it's folded to the score line but not on it or past it, because it's gonna not create as nice of a fold if we go over that score. So just go right up to it and then make a nice crease. If you want, you can use a bone folder. If you just unfold that crease for a moment, add a little adhesive to it, and then that way when you put it back down, it stays there forever. Okay, now what we need to do is make a smaller angled fold in the upper left corner. And I wanted that edge of that fold to be at about 3 inches. So here's 0 on my grid ruler. I'm going to mark it at 3 inches. That's where I want my fold to be. Now, how do I make sure I do this well? A great way to ensure that our fold is at a 45-degree angle, which is our goal, is to actually use the angle on the ruler. So it has this 45-degree mark on it. So if I take this angle and I put it so it's level with the top of my card and keep moving my ruler until the edge of the ruler lines up with my mark, like it is right now. So here's the mark. Here's the angle line. That means from here to here is a perfect 45-degree angle. So I can actually kind of make a little bit of a bone fold crease with my bone folder. And now when I fold this, it's really at the perfect, accurate, nice 45-degree angle. You might just say, that's crazy, Tricia. Then just measure from 3 inches on each side to create the direction or orientation of your crease. Okay, so now we are going to actually create the card. So we start out by taking this upper left quadrant and folding it over. And what you want to do is just match up the right edges. And then crease that. Okay, now take this bottom lower right quadrant and bring it up. So you're just forming a second pocket. Finally, take the upper left quadrant and wrap it around to the back. So now you're making the part of the card that opens. Isn't that clever? Now I have a beautiful double pocket card. You'll notice though that it has some vulnerabilities, like it has the ability to come apart. So what you want to do is study where those places occur and take care of that with maybe some of our bookbinding glue and a needle tip applicator. So for example, I don't want this to flop down anymore. So I'm just going to take a little bit of bookbinding glue and go along this edge. And then I want to go up along this edge a little bit to seal the edge of the pocket. And I'll just close the card again so that these edges are sealed. Then there's also a second pocket where there's an opening, so just take some adhesive and apply it to that edge as well. And now the card won't open and fall apart. It'll be a permanent pocket. So if I just grabbed any one of these piles of artwork, this is going to be the Go Stand Outside card. I can take the big orange panel, and the reason we supplied a big orange panel for the inside of the card is to give the text weight paper a little bit more stability. And then we can, while we're at it, add the You're Outstanding element to the inside. Now on the outside of the card we've got two panels. Depending on how you want to do this, you could put the red panel first and the brown panel second. And if you'd like, you can put a little bit of make it more like a tag by adding ribbon to the top. And I absolutely love this gorgeous twill with gold woven into it. It's like a metallic gold. So if you want, you can staple this ribbon to the top of the card before you nest it on the panel so that there's no staple visible. And then go ahead and nest it and repeat for the second cut apart and panel. Then all you need to do is insert the panels into the card and figure out, what should we do with the rest of this? Lots of options, of course, and you know, if you are a subscriber to the page kit for Club Scrap, you could stencil some leaves onto the front of this to add a really nice element of artwork. All kinds of options, but also within the kit we have some fun things you can do with the garland and with the silk leaves. So if I took some garland and I just stretch it across the angled pocket and determine how many of these leaves can fit, I'll just trim off that end. Nice. So then I'll just flip that over and carefully add some of our bookbinding glue to the back of the leaves. For another embellishment option, take some of the brown jute fiber and tie right around the base of the maple leaf. Now what you can do if you like is just trim the tail. Make sure it is a wire tail, so make sure you don't use a really nice quality paper scissors on that. I'm using one that's kind of on its last leg just for trimming wire. I keep that specifically on hand. Now we have enough leaves for two of the cards to get two leaves, one oak and one maple, so just kind of find a pleasing way to arrange that. And then once you have your arrangement, what I would recommend is just taking some glue lines and just trim them to the appropriate length and burnish them onto the back, which I've gone ahead and done, and then add those to the front of the card, and that'll be there to stay. Very good. Now what's left to do, obviously, is to give the remaining 3 pieces of text weight paper the same exact treatment, nest your panels, and attach your garland and the remaining silk leaves, and you've got a beautiful set of cards. Let's move on to the structure for card set B. Now I've taken everything out of that pocket, so let's begin by distributing our little piles. We'll do the deal. And so we've got 4 orange card bases. That's always a good place to start. Got a bunch of triangles on top, so maybe we'll distribute those. We got 4 printed triangles. Those are going to end up becoming like little pockets to hold the corner of the front panel of the card. And then 4 red triangles. We'll find that 4th one. Here we go. 4 brown panels. And then we've got our sentiment pairs. So there's a dark frame. As kids, we wondered why our parents were always in a bad mood. That goes like with, now we're like, okay, yes, this makes sense. One day someone's going to hug you. That's a sympathy card. So we'll put so very sorry for your loss. By being yourself, you put something wonderful into the world that wasn't there before. So glad you're you. Happy birthday. And let's make this one. My summer bikini body wasn't ready, but my autumn sweater body is on point. And that is indeed a fact. I never really got there with the summer bikini body. It's been a number of years. Okay, so let's begin by folding our orange card base. And always remember, here's the bump of the score. So that portion of the score, the bump or the raised area, should be buried on the inside of the fold. So that alliteration maybe will help you. Always remember the bump gets buried on the inside of the fold. Okay, so what we can do right out of the gates is put the innie into the card. So that's the but my autumn sweater body is the innie. If you wanted to, you could use a ruler to make sure this is all centered, but for now I guess I'll eyeball this. And so just put adhesive on the back and center this on the card base. Oh, I have a hard time doing that without a ruler. It's probably crooked. Okay, then we can take the printed triangle, and I'll use bookbinding glue to just nest this completely onto the red panel. And as I mentioned before, this is going to become a pocket. So what we want to do is put adhesive just on the square edges on the outside. So do not get adhesive anywhere else, just on the edges, and place that on the upper right corner of the card base, keeping in mind that the flap will be on your left, the front flap of the card. So by doing it this way, we are creating a pocket. All right, now you have a couple of options for decorating the cards. One option would be to put, we have 2 oak leaves left. You can wrap those with some of that jute fiber and attach it to the card, which is how this one was structured. There are 2 cards also where I just stapled some of this beautiful gold infused twill. Whatever you decide to do, we will end up nesting this front panel onto the brown panel. Center that as best as you can. And then this becomes attached to the card flap only. So do not put adhesive anywhere on this half of the panel, or you're going to make yourself, as we always say, a postcard. I'm going to find the center of this, which is going to be 2 1/4 inch from the top and bottom edges. I'm going to go a 1/2 inch from the outside edge on this side. So I've got 4 cubes on my ruler in each direction. That way, if I plop this right here, then I know it's exactly centered on the card. And then when I add adhesive carefully, I'll just make sure I only go so far. My ruler moved a little bit. And again. Okay, so now I've adhered this to the left flap of the card base. Be careful not to go past that. All that's left to do is just tuck this behind. And again, if you wanted to adorn this with one of these leaves, just kind of be aware of where the corner of that pocket's going to be living. And you've got yourself a really fun card. All the rest of the cards in this set are constructed in the same exact way. So just for now, we'll set all of our planned pieces aside with our sample and move on to card set C. I've taken everything out of pocket C and arranged my 4 cards in front of me with each one with a red card base, each one with 3 textured strips, 3 cut aparts for the front. So you'll have 2 plain, and then 1 with a sentiment or a word that says thanks, and then an innie. And the reason there are only 3 here is because I've already gone ahead and started my 4th card, but I had technical difficulties while filming. So I will just set this aside and kind of walk you through this very, very simple assembly process. So we'll do the Belief in Yourself, which is the first card on page 4 of your instructions. And this is just so wonderfully easy. So just take that bump of the fold and bury it. And then the same with the other side. And that should cause, the scoring measurements that you had should cause the ends of the card to meet in the middle. I'll give that a little burnish. Now you want your grid ruler for this. I mean, I'm a good eyeballer, but it seems I can never get it quite right. And then if you want to make sure the 0 is in the center here, and place it, it's going to be centered at 3 1/2 inches top to bottom. So right now, here's what I want you to find with your ruler. I'm 2 cubes from the edge. So the edge of my card is lined up at 1/4 of an inch. And the zero's in the center. Here's 3.5 and here's 3.5. The zero center isn't as important as just the fact that the ruler is level on your card base. Then the strips will be attached 1/4 of an inch apart. So that's 2 cubes from the top, 2 cubes from the bottom, and then 2 cubes away from each other. Okay, so this one is ready. I want to adhere the top and the bottom strips only. So I'll add adhesive to the top. Make sure my ruler hasn't moved. And position it so I'm resting this adhered edge. So I didn't put any adhesive on the right side, only the left side. So I'm attaching this to the left flap. And I'll repeat that for the other bottom flap. So I'm 2 cubes from the bottom, rest it, and drop it. Okay, now the third one I want to attach to the right flap of the card base. So that means my adhesive only goes on the right side. I do not need to move my ruler. Just simply put the left edge against the ruler's edge. Make sure it's lined on the same number, top to bottom, which is 1. And stick that down. So when the card opens, the middle one goes to the right and the other 2 go to the left. Then we have these sentiments. So I'm going to put 2 of them on the edge of the right flap and 1 on the edge of the left. That's really all there is to this card structure. And what you can also do, just to add a little something to it, is to cut a chevron into the end of 3 pieces of this gorgeous red satin ribbon. 1 for each thing. And you can use your favorite adhesive or just some tape and just attach this so it's peeking out from the edge that's going to be on the panel. So make sure that you have your arrangement in place before you start attaching ribbon, because you don't want your ribbon peeking out from the wrong edge. You know what I'm saying? I think you know what I'm saying. Okay, so I just got 1 more here. Tape that down. Okay, last thing to do is simply adhere the elements to the panel, and just the way it fits in here is just exactly right. I mean, I got a little ribbon scrap here. Came along for the ride. And finally, we'll add Thinking of You to the middle. I always forget to add the sentiments until I've moved on to the next card and think, where did this come from? So just remember to add those. And there's your little gate fold card with the 3 fun little flaps. And that completes card set C. Let's take a quick tour of all the finished cards. Here we have the card with 2 leaves and the tags and the garland. So there are 2 like that. And then we have 1 leaf plus garland. Don't forget we have the panel on the inside with the sentiment as well. Glad we budgeted for that. I think that really helps give this card a nice stable look. Then we have the card with the flap that tucks into the triangular pocket. Love this simple structure and the way that it conserves on paper. Just slide that right under there. Okay, and then finally, we have our gate flap. This is the one that we made. And you can either do the little chevron or you can do a loop, which is super adorable. And we have 2 like that, and then another one with a chevron. So there you have it, the Falling Leaves card kit. I hope you love it and you have a great time learning these card structures and then repeating them with paper that you may or may not have in your stash. Happy card making, everybody. Join me for the page kit tutorial and I'll see you there.